Call the Village of North Fond du Lac Board of Trustees meeting to order Monday, July 1st, 2019. Audience members are requested to sign in the sheet provided at the registration table. Citizens wishing to be heard on topics not listed on the agenda may speak under item C. Citizens may be given an opportunity to speak during discussion of items listed on the agenda and are allowed 3 minutes for comments. Disruptive discussion or profanity will not be allowed. Roll call, officers.
Horning.
Here.
Price.
Here.
Streeter.
Here.
Stutz.
Here.
Will.
Here. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Announcements, communications. Anybody have anything? Seeing none. Move down to, or I'm sorry, citizen participation. Didn't have any citizens participate, so. Residents, business, and staff reports, library.
I don't have any.
Okay. Administrator Nick.
I just mentioned before the meeting too, but the three meetings in a row, the board meetings in a row, it's just a lot of prep time and getting the minutes done and taken care of, and then of course the policy discussion, trying to get all that language up to speed or put in there the way it was approved upon. Also, the licenses we approved last week, those all had to be issued. As far as I know, every one of them were picked up by today. Today was the last day. Well, today was the first day of the new cycle. So that's behind us now. So that was a long process, and the first time I've been through it, the licensing, it's definitely a time-consuming process. So that's just been a lot of busy work with that stuff. That's all I have.
Do we have any, on the action advertising plan or something?
I haven't had time to really dig into it.
Very cool. All right, thank you. Police Department. There.
Thank you. I passed around the May monthly report. That's a little bit later than usual because I missed a meeting in June, so I apologize for that. But you have the information in front of you. Last week, Monday, we held a pinning ceremony for our newest officers, Jared Dean, Joel Yeager, Steve Schmidt, and Sergeant Justman. The ceremony was well attended, went off without a hitch, and I appreciate everybody who was able to join us for that. Last week, Wednesday, Officer Hendricks and I traveled down to Kenosha for the funeral services of Racine Police Officer John Hetland. I appreciate him taking the time to do that. And then the last thing I have is that we are once again facing a little bit of a staffing shortage, but this one it's hard to feel all bad about. We've got an officer who's on family medical leave right now. Jared Dean and his wife had a little boy on June 28th, so congratulations to them.
Thanks, Darren. Appreciate the invite for the pinning ceremony. That was cool to be part of that. All right, Fire EMS, Jake.
Thank you. Shortly after the board meeting on June 17th, we responded to a structure fire on Wisconsin Avenue. Everything went pretty well. The cause is undetermined, basically because of the fire damage inside of the room that it started in. We actually had 25 out of the 38 people on the department respond, which is a really good response for the department, and we got there in a pretty quick manner. So on July 9th, I'll be going to Fond du Lac County Dispatch for a eMavis meeting, and what that program does is it allows us to put and modify all of our Mavis cards on a computer system, and that way throughout the year we typically make changes in the beginning of the year, and if something were to come up, we can go in there electronically instead of having to contact dispatch, change our Mavis card, and then it sends it out to all the chiefs in the county that are affected by that. So it'll be a really useful program, and they'll be training us on how to utilize it. So myself and Adam will be going there, and that way him and I can make the modifications to the cards. On August 3rd, and I know that's kind of a ways out, but we will be working with the softball league in North Fond du Lac on having a game with firefighters and the coaches and softball players. It'll be from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. is the planned time of the game. So we're hoping that we can get a lot of people out there to support them. Majority of the money that is raised that day will be going to the softball club, so which will be good for them. And the last thing I have is Mike Bell. As most of you know him, is retiring as of today. He put on 35 and a half years on the department. which is a long time, and I'll be setting up a recognition for him at one of our upcoming trainings, and I will make sure that everybody's invited to that. So Mike put a lot of time and effort into the department, and he's helped me out quite a bit in the last 2.5, 3 years, between him and a couple other guys on the department, but he definitely stands out as being there and so on and so forth. So that's all I got.
Got a question for Jake. I think
Yep.
I had heard that the Fond du Lac's Fire EMS Training Center, or at least the Fond du Lac Fire Training Center, is complete.
Correct, yeah, they've
Have you
been,
been invited to at least toured or anything, or?
no, not yet. They've been doing their first round of training with their guys on that building, so I would assume in the future that'll be open to,
Be interesting
you know,
how they
pair
invite or
up with
how they
them.
charge or what they're gonna do.
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Other agencies.
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yep.
Hey Jake, in the future, could you
Yep.
give the board like a heads up when the MSAC meetings are coming up? I know you always tell us about them like afterwards, or just giving us, you know, like a week or something like that.
Yeah,
If anybody wants to attend, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I can send out the agenda right to you guys.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
I apologize for that.
Jake, just as long as we're on that topic, is it going to be the 18th or the 19th?
The 18th of September.
Tuesday.
What? Well, that'd be Wednesday.
Or Wednesday, yes.
Yeah.
We switched it. It is switched.
Yeah, yeah.
September 18th will be the next one.
Okay.
But yes, we can send that
Yeah,
out.
that'd be great. All right, Public Works, Darren.
All right, thanks. Just a couple of quick things. Crew's been pretty busy trying to get all the asphalt and concrete patching in the streets and some terrace work, landscape, from water repairs that we've done in the last 6-8 months over the winter and into this spring with main breaks and service that we've replaced. Another thing is we're looking for a new janitor. Our current janitor is going to be leaving us, so we have it out there taking applications to fill the part-time janitor position again. And then the last thing, I've been working on getting some of our equipment, the street sweeper, the NAV, and a 1997 pickup truck listed on Wisconsin Surplus Auction up for sale. We've replaced the sweeper already. We're replacing the NAV with a little gas-powered utility vehicle that will be more suited for pulling the weight of our weed sprayer and stuff like that. And then the pickup truck is just, will be replaced next year.
So Darren, what are we replacing with like what the school has, like that Gator, or is that,
Little Cub Cadet.
and those are okay to drive on the street?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, and then another question, how are you, advertising for the custodian? I looked on the website and it's still got this summer help, but that one's still up there, advertising for a seasonal as of like today, and those are filled, right? Or no?
Sort of, yes.
Okay.
With the vacancy from the crewman position, we're probably looking at just filling it with a seasonal
Okay,
position until we decide which way we're gonna go with filling that full-time position that's open right now. It should be on the website, it's out on social
Okay.
media.
okay,
And also we've been getting inquiries through Indeed.
okay. So is that 20 hours a
Yeah,
week?
20-hour-a-week position.
And starting at,
12 to 15, I think, what our
Okay.
range was.
cool, all right, thank you. Consent agenda, approve the minutes of the following board meeting from June 17, 2019. Approve the invoices and authorized checks be drawn in respective funds. General fund, $20,719.27. Outdoor rec, Norfondi Fest, $6,165.60. Library fund, $790.71. EMS fund, $1,039.06. Water department, $5,605.18. Wastewater department, $1,267.74. Stormwater fund, $310.15. Community development, $17.27 for a grand total of $35,914.98. And also approve the following operator license: Jim Leveri, permanent for Village Park; Donna Wick, permanent for Cornelli; and Faith Peters, permanent for the Stretch. What is the board's pleasure?
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
I get a second?
I'll second that.
Got a motion by Will, second by Stats to approve the consent agenda as read. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None. All right, moving down to administrative. Number 1, presentation by Envision Greater Fond du Lac. I'd like to welcome Scott Paul.
Thank you, sir. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Scott Powell. I'm the Vice President of Economic Development for Envision Greater Fond du Lac. So for those who don't remember, a couple of years ago, the Association of Commerce of Fond du Lac and the Fond du Lac County Economic Development Corporation merged to create Envision Greater Fond du Lac. So I lead our economic development efforts, which encompasses our attraction and retention activities, entrepreneurship, and then through the merger, the workforce component came over under my purview from the EAC as well. So I'm going to give you a brief update on kind of what we're doing on the economic development side. So if you or staff has any questions, just please feel free to holler out. Do I need to be mic'd or anything?
No, we have
Okay,
a
I think I could probably grab the
We can
fire
just kind
chiefs and,
of, no, it's just kind of pointed in that direction.
okay. So if I need to speak up or anything, just let me know. All right, so give you kind of a we'll go with that way.
Guess it's not gonna work.
Exactly. I'll just keep that bending over. So, so we track active projects. So these are any type of company that's looking to come in and either expand that are already here or coming in net new to the area. If we can quantify their jobs, payroll, square footage, and know what sector they're in, we classify them as a project. Anything less than that, it's a lead. We've got about another 30 leads. We've got about 27 active projects. I'm not sure in the previous years if the EDC did track them or not. I couldn't find any records of it. So I can't give you a historical perspective, but since I've been here for a little over a year, we've been trending right around between 25 and 35 active projects. So if they all hit, and they never do, this, and again, this is countywide, we got about a potential about 760 jobs, payroll about 34 million, 847,000 square feet, and a capital investment of about $64 million. And that number again fluctuates as a project falls off. We'll remove it. As one comes in, we'll add it in there. Looking at the projects, we're seeing a lot of activity in our manufacturing space. Both food and advanced manufacturing is over half of our pipeline, with retail making up about another 45%, and then just a menagerie of other stuff making up those 3 in the ubiquitous other. So I wanted to give you kind of a highlight of about three projects over the past about 18 months where North Fond du Lac was a consideration. So the first one, what we refer to, and we give all these code names. Some of it is to protect the client and for competitive reasons. Sometimes we don't even know who we're working with. So the first one was Project Cake, and it was a food grade manufacturing facility, 150,000 square feet. They were looking for an existing building. Have anything close to that size? So the virtual building has been an asset of being able to pitch something that, even though it doesn't exist, we know we can pull a permit fairly quickly and have some flexibility to get it in there. And then we had 2 other kind of warehouse distribution facilities. So Project Nord came to us out of Chicago with a relationship we have with a broker there. They needed a rail serve site, so we'll talk a little bit more about some of the work we did together on possibly doing the rail serve industrial park, but we're looking for a rail serve site. 130 jobs, but it was 500,000 to 1 million square feet of warehouse distributions facility. Not a lot of rail served opportunities in and around just not only Wisconsin, but the upper Midwest, and really even the United States. So having rail served would be, is an asset, would be very helpful to our economic development efforts. And then Project Double Tap. It ranged anywhere from 50,000 square feet up to 147,000 square feet. Jobs were 60 to about 130. So their parameters were pretty large. Again, they wanted a physical facility. They've kind of honed in on the Fox Valley area, so it's no longer an active product. But it was actually something that we got with a relationship with a broker we had in Milwaukee. Actually, the same broker that brought us John Stone Supply.
Scott, if I may interrupt.
Yeah.
Quickly, just for the board, from an outsider's view, it may seem like it. Obviously, the village has rail available to it, but there is no rail service here. There's no possibility of getting a spur off of that rail right now. So there is no rail service in the village right now. The only rail service that I'm aware of is the south side of Fond du Lac, and then there's another. Is there another one on the east?
We actually have one in Waupun and one in Ripon. So even the south side of Fond du Lac kind of same problem we're having here
Yeah.
in the village of, it's got rail siding, it has vacant land, but you need a spur, you can't stop that train on the main line to sort cars, so you need to develop a spur off of it to do it. So it takes some coordination with the railroad, with the village, and with other partners as well. So my experience with the railroads is, if you find a user with enough volume, it's amazing. The constraints that weren't available before could be there. So some of the work we did on the, on the potential rail sewer site that kicked around that CN ultimately said doesn't quite fit. If it's a large enough user with large enough cars, they'd be willing to either service it out of Menasha or be willing to run one, something up north. But through that effort, so we work closely with Nick in the village, Envision Greater Fond du Lac, the county, and a consultant to really go through and see if that was a viable site. It was a viable site for every reason except CN. It was a little too close to their switching yard, and it had to be served out of Menasha. So didn't really gain a lot of traction coming out of CN. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah.
For it, but again, being we have some of that legwork, if we have a large user that has a lot of train volume, we can still take that site to CN and say, would you make an exception for this? On top of that, the county extended the run over County Road N, so if it did ever happen, we're not gonna have to adjust the bridge whenever that does get built. So even though that planning went for naught, we still have some long-term successes from that planning opportunity. So, and I think you're all aware of Johnson Supply that acquired about 5 acres in the Northgate Industrial Park. So, know they're moving forward. I think right now they're selecting a contractor. We touched base with them. Winter felt like it went so long, so I'm pretty sure it was spring that felt like winter. To check in with them, so everything's moving along well. They just stood up their operations in a temporary facility over in Fond du Lac, and have full intention. I believe they want to be in the ground by next year.
Yep.
And I believe.
From what I understood, their lease was up at the end of 2020, so they
Yeah.
need to be in the
Yeah.
new place by the end of 2020.
Right, so that's our understanding as well, so. But again, part of our job is to look for those opportunities that are not only in the area, but are outside the area as well. So again, this came with a broker we have a relationship with out in Milwaukee that said, hey, I have a client looking for something kind of in that area. We looked at multiple sites. They loved the Northgate Industrial Park, proximity to the interstate. I think your design criteria of looking at the existing buildings there spoke that this would be a great spot for them to be in.
The other thing I wanted to add to that is, as far as I recall, at least, originally the virtual building was presented to them, and that's kind of what got them looking here to begin with, so.
Yeah, so, which is a great segue into the next slide. So, so the virtual building, so we've had that in, in the In Development Conference where we were representing it there. Insight Magazine, which is an economic development publication representing all of northern Wisconsin. It is featured on the Envision Greater Fond du Lac website, which is Envision Greater FDL. So we are marketing it as well to potentials, but as Nick is absolutely right of, they needed something quick, and the virtual building hit that mark. But when they realized they could find something temporarily, it allowed them to kind of build out exactly what they wanted, which had them acquire the approximate 5 acres. But again, I think it's a great win for the region and for the village to have them taking a parcel within the industrial park.
Do you have a partnership with another community for another virtual building besides North Fond du Lac?
Oh, we also have one within the Fond du Lac as well. So we have,
Fond du Lac?
yeah, so we have 2.
Here in Fond du Lac, that's it?
Yeah. So throughout they were the only two, 2 communities that found interest in going forward with that. So it's honestly still a fairly unique concept. You're seeing more and more communities doing it nationwide, but explaining it to the outside community when we say virtual building, we all know what it means, but a lot of other people, when you say virtual, they tend to think of it not physically existing, but to say a fully entitled virtual building that permits can be pulled is how we explain it, and that tends to resonate pretty quick. So to be in the ground and up and running, within 9 months to a year is still a very, very strong competitive advantage. And honestly, our real estate offerings countywide, we don't have a lot of new builds. So I think it gives us an ability in which to get a new tenant in there, hopefully in the near future. So then, as all this goes into, workforce is also a very important component. So as I touched on the top of this has existed within the community for quite a while, either through Fond du Lac Works and previously School to Work. So I know I've got a lot of information up there, but Probably my favorite part is Horace Mann High School through Project Grill, which is, we partner a business, in this case Wabash or Brenner Tank, with North Fond du Lac. And this is the first time Brenner Tank has been part of Project Grill. And they might have done it early on, but it's been several years. And usually when we get a new business into the program, we like to partner them with a well-established school. So North Fond du Lac made a lot of sense for that reason. And if you can see this, and I apologize, the color's a little off, they made a scale model of a Brenner tank. So what was really cool, so the students actually started, they went to Fleet Farm and bought a tire and scaled that tank, that is an actual scale size, I don't know what the scale is, to a tank based upon that tire. So they did that tire and scaled out the rest of it. You know, it was by far, it won Best in Show, was by far the most popular there. And I believe it's a display piece now, Brenner Tank, in their main lobby. So they did a great job, and I mean, that was, I believe, aluminum, what they were working with. So not an easy thing to weld or to work with, where most other people were using steel. So they did a great job. 17 students came together. They started at the beginning of the year with you need to build a grill that can cook 12 brats in an hour. They worked with their partner, and then at the end of the year, they came up with a scale model of a tank, of a tank trailer. So again, a really impressive work those young students did. Another one, you can see some participation from Lemonade Day, our Youth Idea Challenge. 10 students, I believe, was the strongest representation in there. 2 students are youth leadership partners with about 8 different schools from around the area in a leadership program throughout their entire junior year. And then you had a picture of a young gentleman whose name escaping me, signing with Ahern. So pre-apprentice went from the youth apprenticeship program, which are for juniors and seniors. They work 450 hours, get school credit, and do a job. So a great way for them to explore career options, and a great way for them to to figure out what they do or don't want to do. So this young man is going from a youth apprentice into a pre-apprenticeship program with Ahern. So we've been talking about doing a community signing day for kids that are going into the trades. And so this young man was kind of our first pilot test. So we're hoping to see what that looks like, assuming our businesses want to do it. Ahern said they're all in. And we can get the students as well to maybe do that more. But we had 7 students this year from North Fondy in our youth apprenticeship. We've got 14 applied or in the application process right now. So again, a great way for a student when an unemployment rate is at 2.5%. Great way for us to keep our youth in the community, and if we can hold on to them for 10 years, the odds of them going go down precipitously. So some great programs to help us solve our workforce problems. We're working on some other solutions as well, but this is something that we've got going and will continue going. So Aaron Sadoff and his entire team there are great to work with. Their attitude is, if you guys want to pilot or do anything, call us, we're already in. You can explain it to us after we've already said yes. So those are some of the things we're working on in the economic development piece on behalf of the village. Again, my name is Scott Powell. I'm your Vice President of Economic Development. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any more questions. Yes?
I have a question. So you talked about keeping kids in that area. Is that, do kids tend to stay here, or do we have like an outflux, I guess, of people, of young people?
So, your traditional outflux of those going on to 2- and 4-year universities, or colleges and universities that don't choose one of the local ones. I don't think it's any greater than what you would see anywhere else. It might actually be a little bit less. I don't think the college rate, I think it's about 45% going on. I can't remember the exact number, to 2 or to 4 year, and that can stay within the community. But again, if you're looking for a job, you can work here, you can work in Milwaukee, you can go down to Miami, Florida if you want to. So the more we can do, the focus is on attracting talent. The entire country is, I was an economics student in my undergrad. Back when I went to college, 4.5% unemployment was considered full employment. It was, the economy is overheated. At 2.5% here, 3.7% nationwide, we're past that. There's only, I think, 3 states above 4.5%. So to say we need to bring people in, that's something we need to work on, but we also need to recognize that it's far easier to keep our talent here and to grow them into jobs as it is to go out and train new ones. So, you're welcome.
We do have a lot of communities that have these big stores that are leaving, that stores like that, to fill that void. I mean,
Yeah. you know, and probably the next one to hit is gonna be all these retail banks. And it's just the changing dynamic of retail. There isn't a good, so the fact that we have Meyer looking at the old Forest Mall is great, because the second choice is to let it sit there. So filling in those big box stores, you see churches, schools are becoming the biggest ones, or some smaller recreational facilities, but they don't tend to generate the same level of foot traffic. But the changing nature of retail, especially the smaller cavities, is getting much more difficult. So you know, and retail is also becoming much more data driven. They know what your demographics are, how many people you have, what their disposable income is, better than honestly we probably do. So they already know where they're going to go, and you're seeing more of their shop goes. If you start looking at Payless Shoe Source, there's a lot of different companies that are looking to contract their footprint rather than to add it. So it's going to be difficult. So the best thing you and I can do is shop local. You know, you might be able to save that extra $2 by going to Amazon, but go down to, you know, go to Kohl's. If you can find a local mom and pop, even better. Even if it's an extra 10-15%, they're the ones that sponsor the baseball team, not the you know, not Amazon. At least I've never seen an Amazon sponsored you know, youth baseball team. So, and it's tough. I mean, it's really easy. I mean, to be honest, I needed to order a blanket for my dog today. What did I do? Hopped on Amazon, figured it, and I'll be there on Wednesday. So, but what I should have done was go down to the pet store. So, it's going to be a challenge, and it's going to only probably get worse before it gets better. But we still need to touch, taste, and feel things, and we like those conveniences. But you're seeing more in the food and entertainment space is what's going in, but that doesn't tend to fill a big box.
Is downtown Fond du Lac starting to see a little bit of revitalization, or not so much? Is that?
So both Fond du Lac, Ripon, and to a lesser extent Waupun has all seen, you know, a lot of traction in the downtown. People want an authentic sense of, you know, of place. So I think downtown Fond du Lac's vacancy rate is now down around 5%, which now creates a separate set of problems. When vacancy rates are that low, rents start going up, and if they can't maintain the sales, it, you know, churns over. But you know, they've seen a good amount of new stuff coming in. Brickhouse, you know, opened recently, was one of our loan clients. And that's something I should also mention about Johnstone is we have about 4 different loan portfolios, and I think that also helped. They're looking to access that when they start building it to provide a cheaper form of capital. So Retlaw just opened its top floor. It's got 2 more floors which should be open already July 1, so within the next couple of weeks. And their bottom level where their spa was, during the flooding in February, March, it was all done, and it was a sewer backup. So being that's, you know, a spa, it's human contact, they have to almost tear it completely out and redo it. So, which is just heartbreaking. Hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damage. So, thankfully they're in process with that, but the important thing at a hotel is you need to get those heads in beds, which is, again, just a great amenity for the region.
So did the Fond du Lac Theater recently get sold?
I'm sorry,
Did the Fond du Lac Theater?
the movie theater?
Yeah.
Yes, it's a group out of Minnesota, which I can't remember the chain.
Even if they redo something like that, keep a couple people more from, you know, going up to Oshkosh is always good too. So,
And from my understanding, yeah, they're planning on doing at least they're saying they're planning on doing a complete overhaul. So, but I've seen that work. You go to less seats, but you get at a higher level or amenity. So, although if they get really the big plush recliners, I wind up falling asleep. So.
yeah, absolutely. Does anybody have any other questions for Scott?
I thank Scott for coming. And I had met with Cecilia maybe, I don't know, a month or so ago, and we agreed that this would be a good thing to do maybe every 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
So this is something we'll do in the future too, is have either Scott or Cecilia or Jim stop down and give us an update.
So, or all 3.
Or all 3, yeah.
So, but thank you guys for your support for Envision and then the community as well for everything we do. So
Appreciate you
it
coming
means a
out.
lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. You can grab your zip drive out of there. And you're more than welcome to leave unless you want to sit through the boring part of the meeting.
Somebody that's did 12 years of municipal service, I've been through more than my fair share of you know, city council meetings.
Yeah.
So
That's
I
good. You
appreciate
can-
the opportunity, but I might slide out.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving down to discussion and action on human resource policy manual. I asked Nick to look back on there. just so everybody's aware that that policy manual is a living, breathing document, so we can, change any time. I mean, Nick showed us that when we're making the changes like right there, so, there's a couple of things that, I wanted to discuss tonight. Nick, what's a recap? What was basically, like from last Monday? Do you have that information?
Yeah, I sent it out an email. I did print the email that I sent to the board. It's just a short, in a second. It's 2 pages barely. This is basically the exact same email I had sent to the board members. I don't know if that was Thursday. Yeah, I sent one down to Jake.
Yeah, since the meeting wasn't televised, I just thought it'd be a good idea to just kind of throw out there what we had talked about.
Give one to Darren.
Yep. That's it for Darren.
And the other Darren, Chuck. So did you want me to summarize this, Mike?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
So I guess the one thing we talked about last week was the village board and not having to approve all of the part-time and seasonal type people, so that was added. That's 301. We talked about 1007. We changed that to any conference outside of the state of Wisconsin needs board approval. Inclement weather, we said, other than sick leave, we added to that because if the offices are closed or someone can't get to work, they're not allowed to use sick time. It's not an allowable use. It was just to kind of clear that up. The sick leave payout, we had discussion on that we changed it to $70 per day. The max is $960, 120 days or 960 hours. And we also talked about last week then that it's upon receipt of pension from WRS or when an employee leaves employment with the village for any reason after a minimum of 20 years of service, or upon receiving disability pension, or upon death, that employee or the legal heirs should be paid the amount equal to $70 per day. We also talked about after reaching that maximum that at the end of every year we will be paying $50 per day. So if somebody's at 960 hours and they earn 12 more days that year, at the end of that year they'll get paid those 12 days at $50 per day. And I put an example in there to make it very clear. Also the authorized use of village equipment, facilities after hours was talked about. We had that waiver taken care of. Sorry, sorry. So we did have that waiver taken care of, and actually quite a few people have already turned that back in. We also talked about the nepotism, which looks like maybe you've gotten cut off there, the title of it. But I wrote, we had looked at Wapon's, we like that one, and so what I put in there is in yellow. Members of the same immediate family are employed by the village. One may not supervise the other, nor may they work in the same department except when approved by the administrator and village board.
Cool. Thank you.
Those were, there was many more small little changes, but most of those were not substance,
Yeah, I
much
just wanted
substance.
to hit the big ones, just so folks are aware. So, does anybody have any questions or comments, Mike?
Part of the reason I asked Mike too, I was really bothered by that number 2, that sick leave payout, that we put that in there without knowing the fiscal impact of it. This, current budget year and budgets going forward, so I think that if you can be spelled out before we make a long-term agreement like that and understand how it's gonna affect things.
So Mike had reached out to me last week and asked me to put together scenarios for the last 3 years of if we had this policy in place, what that would have meant to the village. There's 5 positions there. I didn't put names by them, but there's 5 people that had the 960 in the last 3 years. And basically it's kind of an assumption because they couldn't collect over 960 yet. But we looked back at each one of those individuals and how many days of sick time they used in each year and basically subtracted that from 12 and came up with these dollar amounts. So this is the fiscal impact annually on the bottom there. For the last 3 years, it would have been $1,300, $1,200, and $1,400 respectively for the last 3 years.
Okay.
This is the $50 thing?
That's the $50 thing, great.
I expected that to be a lot higher than that.
Yeah, I knew it. We talked last week. You got 3 or 4 individuals. At max, you've got 4 times 600. That's $2,400 at max. The max they can get is $600.
We have nobody there, right? we just right? Or
$600, there's one person that got would have gotten $600 paid out
in
in 2016, yep. We currently have 4 employees that are there. One of these employees is no longer with us.
But these are all the employees. You're telling me that you have only 4 employees that right now qualify?
Yes,
Of the
out of
whole-
45. And that's what we looked at, if you recall, I pulled it up on the screen last week, we counted them, there was 4.
Have you had any feedback from the employees at all?
I haven't really sent it out completely yet because I got a couple questions coming from their discussion, so I guess I just kind of, but several employees are available, or know about it, and the ones I talked to were pleased, I guess, with that, what the outcome was.
It comes down to like, if you end up getting to that mark, it comes down to like $6 an hour.
$6.25.
$6.25, maybe
Yep.
over $6
Yep.
an hour we pay out for,
Yep.
okay. I thought it'd be a little higher than that.
You good on that one, Mike?
Yes.
Anything, anybody else have anything on that one? Okay, I had a couple of things I was just gonna run by the board. Just wonder, the board's opinion is with, like Scott had just mentioned about like people ordering like stuff on Amazon and stuff. With Amazon and the other, the other shippers sending more and more stuff out, does anybody on the board think that we need any type of policy like regarding having folks sending personal packages to work? I mean, I know for me, I can't do that. I don't know, this is something new, newer that's kind of gaining traction that, and I'm just curious what the board thinks of that. Do we need something, like if that would get out of hand, obviously not things that, the village is buying for the village, but people are buying for themselves and just having shipped here out of convenience. Does anybody see that as a problem where, people may look at that like maybe they're, people being allowed to shop online while they're at work? Just throwing that out there. Does anybody have any issue? Do we need to address that? Because like I said, it's something that's new and being in my job, you see, people are ordering more and more stuff, so I'm just asking. Do we need to put something in our policy addressing that? I'm sorry, Chuck.
I agree that I don't agree with allowing employees to be shopping during working hours other than during lunch hour, before or afterwards, but I guess unless it starts getting excessive, sometimes depending on what you're ordering, and I don't think North Fond du Lac has to worry about it, packages disappearing from front porches that you see in some of the other cities, but I would think to start with not to restrict that, but maybe review it if management feels that this is getting out of hand, so that's my opinion.
Does anybody else have any, you want to weigh in? Randy? Looks like
Yeah,
you're
I
gonna-
think, I agree with Chuck. I think, let's see if it becomes excessive.
Are you?
I know the county, I believe at the Department of Community Programs, they allow it, and I don't think it's a real big issue.
Okay. Like I said, I just wanted to address it, because it's kind of one of those things that's that convenience thing, so.
I surely wouldn't encourage it, but it would just be selective times. I mean, there's certain things that you worry about.
Yeah.
Values and signatures and stuff, but not.
And I'll
know.
chime in on this a little bit. I mean, I've been asked about this before, and I don't see it as a real big problem. I mean, I could see it getting excessive. If it gets excessive, we'll address it internally. But personally, I have a dog that likes to chew my packages open on my front porch. He's not locked up during the day, and so it's we've gotten home before and our box is chewed up. So it is, and it's that sitting out in the elements. I've gotten home before where my package is soaking wet. It is convenient. It's a convenience, and I don't think it is being abused. And I certainly don't think that I don't think there's any correlation between delivering it here and shopping here. But again, I think we can manage that if it becomes an issue.
Okay, I just want to address that, so everybody's fine with addressing that.
Good question.
Okay. One other thing, and I know a couple of the new board members probably don't know this, but we had, in the policy a few years ago, we had, there's seatbelt language in the policy, and we removed it a while ago. And I looked at what it used to say in the policy from 2016, where they address it.
Okay.
Where we addressed that, where it went down and said, you know, like, safety standards, vehicle equipment operations, this shall not be limited to, and then it's, you know, reading, following build safety rules, wearing protective equipment, and it talks about the seatbelt use. And then we went to what we have now, and it is, it just says, each employee is responsible for performing his job with the possible regard for his own safety and rights and safety as others. Well, we had with the newer trustees, we had an issue where, for a while there was kind of, a question if folks that were driving a village vehicle had to wear their seatbelt. And we talked about, the exception to that policy being if they're like doing brush pickup, and this certainly doesn't address that at all, like the 11.03. And I'm just wondering if the village employee or the village board would entertain putting that back in there, so you can, so it has that exception spelled out, just so that, you know, folks are clear. If you had seen someone out there not wearing a seatbelt and had a question about it, that you can refer to that specifically. Nick?
Just to give a little background on that, because I had some more thoughts on it. When we discussed it from an internal standpoint, originally that was put in there for one department. And then when we went to the personnel policy and starting to go through it, we realized that it really didn't apply to some departments. There's state and federal rules that apply to, say, the fire and first responders, and where they were different. And we looked at it, and basically it says that everyone must follow state, federal laws and safety guidelines, right? I don't have it in front of me. It says they need to follow federal laws, state laws, and department safety guidelines.
Yeah.
Village safety standards. So that is why we took it out, because we felt it was kind of, it wasn't very accurate, because it doesn't necessarily apply to all departments. So we thought that leaving it in there like that, then each department might have their own safety policies to follow. That was the reasoning behind it.
So the village safety standards, where is that spelled out? Does it spell that out? Like, I mean, I see it says here, but where does it?
Each department has operating policies or safety policies. Every department has their own.
I don't know if you want us to stem off that, but I know that I do, and I'm assuming that everybody else does, having a standard operating policy on wearing seatbelts, because there are times in the back of an ambulance where we're providing emergency care to somebody that we're not able to wear a seatbelt. So there are certain situations in which we're not going to be wearing one.
So does that?
Now, if we're in the front of a vehicle driving point A to point B, you know, those guys should be wearing their seatbelts per policy. But
So does that specifically spell that out on there, like in
In our safety manual, yes,
like where it says?
state law.
Okay. It's and the exception for the brush pickup is spelled out like in.
It's not an exception for any particular job, it's how many times you exit the vehicle in a certain distance.
Okay. Yeah, when I talked to Nick earlier, I couldn't remember how.
And I couldn't either. And I thought about it more, and this discussion is pretty much.
If you recall, that's actually why we changed the language to what we did, because
Yeah.
if we were to say a certain job precludes you from wearing the seatbelt, that's not what state statute says. It's exactly as Darren said, there's a certain number of stops and times you have to exit a vehicle in a certain distance. And so we changed it, basically saying comply with law, because if we had just said brush pickup, that's not,
Yeah, I couldn't
that's
remember that
not
discussion.
restrictive enough.
Okay.
So,
This is
This
basically
is
a
actually-
discussion we had the
Yeah.
last time we talked about this. Now that we're talking about it from a staff level, our staff level, we had this whole discussion just like this, and we decided, well, let's simplify it then and just make it state and federal law.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions on that? That was just need that point of clarification. Okay. So, I wanted to also tonight talk about, bereavement leave, and where is that? Yeah, down there.
20? I guess.
Is it 20? Yeah, you're right.
I printed out a couple of things. Nick was nice enough to print something out for me. So sorry, I just had enough for that. And then this one is just Fond du Lac's policy. And I know Chuck had mentioned last week when we were talking about comparisons and stuff. I know he's not a fan, but for me, and it's personal preference, and I don't know, especially being a new trustee, sometimes it helps out to see
These are
what.
the other ones I
Oh, thank
provided.
you. Sometimes it helps to see what other communities are doing out there, just to get an idea what our policy looks like. So, oh, I'm sorry. All right, thank you.
Mhm.
So, I wanted to put this on here, just, like I said, this one was just a comparison with Fond du Lac, what they have, and looking at communities our size and larger, that's about average. Nick had put down what like the breakdown was for like the last 10 years, so to give you an idea. So obviously our policy, our funeral leave is not being, abused, which is really nice to see. I just wanted to put this on the agenda to see what the rest of the board is thinking. I mean, is it, do you like the way it looks? Is it excessive? Is it, or what? So, like I said, I wanted to bring this on. This thing about talking about like last Monday night, but this is one of those things I think is, the discussion is good to see if, if anybody is watching, or if someone asks you a question about it, you can always refer back to this meeting. I've done that a couple of times where I didn't remember exactly all the particulars about a discussion, and I said, hey, go back to the June whatever meeting, and I was actually on the Action Advertiser thing, and they watched the discussion and got a pretty good idea of what we talked about. So, just anybody who wants to start the conversation, Mike?
So one question I had, I guess I was gonna bring it up during the discussions, I forgot to. I guess I'm surprised any of the funeral leave isn't charged against your sick leave. And, let's say, this way, some of the numbers are pretty strong in the funeral leave, but when you're using your sick leave, so then you manage it a little bit better, so I'm just a little surprised it's not charged against your sick leave balance.
Yeah, I mean, it never, and that's, I think, based on the comparisons that I received, that the one, I did this last year. I think all those are truly funeral leave. Funeral leave is not charged against the sick leave. The issue that comes into play there, that comes to mind right away, is, you have people that don't have sick time, or they're brand new, and they have, that's the funeral leave is available. And just to summarize, I guess, what I put together here for Mike, that's the last 10 years, and that is the total number of days that were taken by all 45 employees per year. So this year so far, there's been 2 days of funeral leave. Last year was 21. That's what that number means. There's not a lot of explanation there on that page of paper, but so the average has been 9.5 days per year for the last 10 years.
The other thing, Mike, is if you look down, and maybe you saw this, I don't know, but if you look at number 3 on 2003, which is eligibility for funeral leave,
What are we looking at here?
I'm sorry,
Page
2003, it's on
Okay,
page
got it,
55.
I got it.
Number 3, if an employee is actually, if they're off on vacation, comp time, sick leave, floating holiday, and there's a funeral, they can't all of a sudden go back and change it to funeral leave. They're already off of work on paid leave, so they can't go back and change it. It's not like they get that time back.
I get it, I mean, that part of it, yep.
So I guess there's a couple questions here. I guess it's, like I said, I'm really happy that policy isn't being abused, and I'm wondering what the board's feelings are. Do we leave this the way it is? Do you feel that, 5 days or whatever is too much or enough, and then the second part of that is, do we want to look at maybe like 3 days bereavement leave and then sick leave? It's not like, no one is saying you can't take sick leave or anything like that. That's That's how they do it at, like with me, I'm not sure how they do it anywhere else, but we're allowed to take a couple days, charge sick leave for bereavement leave, and then anything else, we have to take actually our vacation days. We're not allowed to take sick leave, so, you know, and this being a little different, where, you know, the taxpayers are providing, you know, that benefit too, so, you know, that's just one of those things to keep in mind also. So, anybody have any, oh, I'm sorry, Chuck? Good.
Yeah, I guess, you know, I feel that for 45 employees, and these are the only amount of days they're taking, you know, even if you would reduce some of these down, it's not saying these number of days is gonna go down, because depending on what relationship it was, it still could end up being even more days than what's showing here, so. Again, I think just for the morale and things like that, when you start taking a day up here or there, that causes more harm than good. And I don't think it's being abused like you had mentioned. So I would not support reducing it.
And then as far as like just keeping it as bereavement leave, not charging sick leave, or what's your second part of that? You know what I mean, is it?
You mean combining
Yeah,
bereavement
like-
and sick leave? I would not do that.
Okay.
Just to add to that, Chuck kind of touched on something about I tried to kind of, when I went through these days, the way the spreadsheet came out, or the way the report came out, was kind of hard to track, but I tried to look for how many of these were 5 days being used, and I think there was 2 out of the whole 10 years. I think there was 2 or 3, so it's hard, but like I said, that's not a guarantee. It's hard to kind of track that. But. And again, those were, I know one of them was a mother and one of them was a sister.
Like I said, with the new trustees, this is always, you know, something that if you're not familiar with this policy, you want to discuss it, then you can put on. So, does anybody else want to weigh in on this issue?
I think, you know, looking at what we've got now is very, very generous. I mean, spouse, mother, father, child, stepfather, 5 days, I think that's very generous. You know, usually it was always 3 days, but realizing times have changed, and, you know, during that time of their bereavement, I mean, you know, a lot of things can happen, a lot of things need to be addressed, so I think the 5 days is very, very generous.
Ann?
Yeah, I agree with Chuck.
Okay.
And it doesn't seem like it's being abused, it doesn't seem like it's a problem. I agree that it's generous, but I mean, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
What?
I guess I like the 3 days, you know, you give the 3 days off, and then if they want the other 2 days, they take 2 6 days for it. I think it's reasonable. We're not saying they can't have it. I know it's not being abused, but it's just checks and balances on if you're gonna leave a little bit, and I guess there's a cost if you take extra days, you know, to the employee. Not saying they shouldn't take them, but so my question is, if you have 2 days, so you're gonna those wouldn't qualify for that 3 day sick leave. You know, you wouldn't allow somebody to, if they had 2 days, you wouldn't say, hey, you can take 4 extra days because of that. You follow me?
No.
The ones that are only 2 days.
Yep.
So that policy you gave Mike wouldn't affect that at all.
What's the policy I gave Mike? I
Not
didn't-
policy, but what Mike handed us about
Oh,
the
which
3
one?
days, the 3 day thing. Did you hand me something, Mike?
For Fond du Lac?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Employees allowed 3 days
Yep.
off with pay.
So Nick, how does that work? Say it's like 2 for grandchildren, and
Yeah.
then, so that you get 2 days bereavement leave, and anything after that is sick leave? Is that how it
Sick
works?
leave, vacation, yep. I would say more often than not, and just from, and Chuck, maybe you'll answer this question better, but I would say more often than not, people don't use the full amount. Like if they're allowed 3 days, they might take 2, you know, if they're allowed 5. 5 days, that one's probably used more than the other ones, because you gotta, I mean, it's a spouse or it's a sibling or a son or a daughter. 5 days probably isn't near enough, you know, but those, I would say the 5 day one, when it is somebody that close, those are used on a regular basis.
Anything else, Mike, or? Yeah, I agree with Mike, like combining the bereavement and the sick leave, but I know we have consensus on the board, so the policy just stay the way it is. Does anybody have anything else they wanna bring up regarding the policy?
I guess I would like to look at this thing when it comes back from the attorney.
Well, of course, I mean.
No, I mean, we should have gonna go on effect right away last week or something was gonna be approved, but I would also still bring it back to the board, right?
Well, here's my understanding of what we did last week. We approved the policy as is. The major changes were really language changes or, explaining something. If there's legal changes that need to be done, that's no different than what it was a month ago. It's still changes that need to be done. So we approved it as is. It's going to legal review. That could take 2 to 3 months by the time they get it all taken care of and back to us. At that time, the village board would, if there's needs to be changes,
Right.
the village board would obviously have to approve of those.
So it wouldn't go into effect until,
Well, it's in effect right now.
what's that?
In my opinion, it's in effect right now.
Okay.
We made a motion to approve the personnel policy as is.
Pending changes. Pending,
Minor legal changes is the way we worded it. So, to me, it's in effect right now.
So pretty much everything that we agreed upon is in effect, and we're just kind of looking at those changes just to make sure that we.
Just having a legal review, and if there's things that need to be addressed, they'll get addressed. But like the reason it's no different, I think we're pretty good, but it's no different than it was a month ago before we approved it. There's nothing that's changing there legally.
I would like to know the board, thinking, should we put this on our website? Human resources.
It's not hard to do.
But I think we should, transparency, we should put it out there, and you looked at other ones, like
Yeah, some
Connex.
communities don't, some communities do, so it's kind of a horse of peace.
I would support, putting it on the website for.
I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with that either, was, if someone is like job hunting and they're, they kind of want to see what type of, what kind of stuff that we have in our policy to see if it's a good fit for them. So I don't see a problem with that for number one, so. Does anybody else want to weigh in? No problem, or Randy, no problem? Yeah, Ann? Chuck? No. So that'd be great, so if we get it all officially approved.
Do you want to wait till we get
That's
legal
fine,
review
yeah,
done?
yes, yeah, for sure.
I would think so.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think we need some good changes to that one. So again, it was a long period of time, but, I thought we cleaned it up very well, so.
Yeah, I'm glad it's behind us. I hope.
Bigger and better things, right? Anybody have anything else on policy? All right, so now we're gonna move down to discussion and possible action on the use of the village street sweeper. Aaron? I put it on the agenda to discuss. I know we've discussed this over the years, obviously, keep talking about the board change.
So the spreadsheet you have is why I went back the last 5 years, and for the communities that we do sweeping for, we do it all on our non-working hours, out of our normal work schedule. So it's all overtime pay for whichever employee is doing the sweeping. So the wages are all at a time and a half rate. The expenses on the spreadsheet, I figured at 6 gallons an hour for that machine sweeping. Plus we charge every community an hour of cleanup time that it takes us to clean the machine up once we get back here. And the rate for the sweeping is what the board voted on over the years is to use the DOT equipment rate. And that's with an operator rate.
So what is that rate?
They're $110.
$110.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that on there. Mind. $110 an hour, okay, I just,
And how many communities use it?
This year so far, we've swept for 2. Last year, we swept for Oakfield, Lamira, Campbellsport, and the city of Fond du Lac. 2016 was probably, 2016 or 2017, we did some sweeping for the county. We did some sweeping for St. Cloud after storms. Typical, our normal ones every year are Oakfield, Lamira, Campbellsport, and sometimes Brandon.
Yeah, I wanted to put this on there because we had this discussion obviously in the past and with the other street sweeper. And I know one year we had like a stone kicked out, on the highway, and we had to pay for so much winter or something, or?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay. So just, having, been through this discussion on, purchasing this new street sweeper, just personally, I don't think that's something that we should do. I mean, after seeing that check we wrote, was that 254,000?
264.
264?
64.
And then with the trade-in and all that stuff,
Right.
but I mean,
In my opinion, and talking with other people, it actually benefits the machine rather than just sitting there rusting.
I don't know, I look at it more like wear and tear. I mean, but that's just me, but that's why I put it on the agenda. I wanted it on the agenda because I wanted.
We're looking at our biggest year of under 60 hours on that machine for sweeping, helping other communities.
How many hours, Derek, do you know how many hours were on that machine that you're selling, or how many hours a year you put on the machine?
We roughly put on 1,800 hours, 16 to 1,800 hours a year. So not even one full oil change, but we change the oil every year just because of the time.
So you say the rate is 110 with the operator? That's pretty cheap.
That's straight off the DOT equipment rates.
Anybody else? Ann?
Hey Derek, so it says invoiced and then wages, so that's the $110 per hour, and those are the
We
wages?
invoice them at $110 an hour. The wages come out of that at the whatever employee's rate of pay was. And then the expenses are at the $3 an hour for fuel.
Do you subtract across then? Is that right, profit
Yeah.
that you
Yep.
The
really?
revenues on the.
The revenue on the end is.
Revenue is the sales and that'd be like profit.
Yeah.
right?
That's what he's calling it.
Okay.
profit.
That's what we've
Got it.
He's
put
on
in,
CP.
back in the village.
I was
That's what we
just-
put it back in the village
I
after
just-
sweeping for
got
another
it.
community.
Okay, thank you.
Does it include like retirement benefits and all that
Yes,
stuff?
that's
everything
with
like that?
benefits.
So, like I said, we have had contractors out by the prison out there, and sometimes it's $90 an hour just for the guy alone, but.
The, sorry, are you done? The other thing I'll just add to this discussion is I mean, Ripon, Fond du Lac, we kind of have this area, it's called Lapua Lake Area Public Works Association. We try to help each other out when we can, and I understand that there's wear and tear in the machine. We are making some revenue off of it, but there's also that neighborhood, that neighborly type helping out, and we do get help from other communities in certain things too. So that is one portion that maybe we didn't discuss yet tonight that is kind of a benefit. It's nice to help out the little guys once in a while, and once in a while we get help from others, so just a thought.
One instantaneous, if our refuse truck is down, Ripon or Fond du Lac have loaned us their refuse truck. We fuel it up, wash it when we're done. That's the only charge we've seen for stuff like that, because we're using our operator in it.
Like I said, I just wanted to put this on there because it's a new purchase, and writing that check or signing that check was kind of a shell shock to me. So I wanted to put that on here and just get consensus on what, have that discussion. Does anybody else want to weigh in, Randy? Or
I think we should continue.
okay, Chuck, Ann,
Yep, continue.
Mike. All right. Well, consensus is continue doing what we do. All right. Thank you. If the board is all right tonight, we're not going to need to go into closed session, so we're going to bring up item 1 from Administrator Von K that we're going to talk about after the closed session. So if the board is okay, we're going to bring up discussion and possible action on the purchase of 601 Michigan Avenue. So that's your next item.
They probably don't need, they're probably not interested. That's one set, correct. Sorry, I didn't have these put together yet. And part of the reasoning here is I got this late Friday, basically, or Wednesday, and found out I had to put it on the agenda Friday or Thursday, so I'm not as prepared as I normally would be. So, long story short here, this is the discussion. You can read the email. The property on the corner of Michigan and Winnebago, that was a one-time fourplex that we condemned and took down, is going back on taxes at this point. The county owns it. They called us originally to reach out because of the lawn mowing, because now they would be their responsibility to lawn mow it. and they would rather not spend those dollars doing that, so we are gonna mow it. Part of the reason for that is it ends up, what we're gonna talk about here, adding to the cost. So with these, we've done this once before, with these types of properties where we have $17,000-$18,000 invested in this piece of property, from tearing it down and then snow shoveling snow shoveling sidewalks and grass removal, and then penalties on those that we're in it for, you know, roughly, our true cost into this thing was like $11,900 for the demo, and then the rest of the stuff, it's kind of, you can argue on this spreadsheet, the specials that are those smaller amounts, like 224, 168, 534, those are really snow shoveling and lawn mowing fees. So are we technically out that money? Not necessarily, a little bit of it. So in reality, we spent just over $11,000 to demo the building. So right now, it's about $21,000, $554, which is on the last page, owed on that site. However, the county offers it to municipalities first, and the municipalities are, generally speaking, their finance committee wants to be made whole. And to make this whole for the county, from the county standpoint, that's that last number on there of $5,107.56, $5,107.56 is what the county would need, so to speak, to be made whole. Now if you read the email, it's not exact at this point because they're waiting on some attorney fees. So my suggestion at this point is to approve me making an offer on this property up to $6,000. And why I think we should do that is we control it then. When it goes to foreclosure and somebody buys it, you know, first of all, I question whether anybody's gonna pay that 21 for it, but secondly, we lose control a little bit into what's going in there. We end up spending a lot of staff time as we have over the years on these types of properties where people wanna, they wanna do all these things that don't fit the zoning, and we end up spending a lot of staff time on it. I would rather be in control of it, also be in control of recuperating our costs, because we have money invested into it. If the county gets $11,000 or $15,000 for it, they're taking their money first, their penalties first, we get what's left over. So in that sense, I think best case scenario, they sell for $20,000, we're still gonna be dealt $5,000. Okay, if we buy it, say we buy it for $5,000, we've got 11 invested, we're at 16. If we sell it for 20, we're down $5,000. So the scenarios pretty much play out the same, except we control it the way I would like to purchase it.
Is that a double lot or is that a single lot?
It's more than a single lot. And, you know, don't necessarily have any ideas. I mean, we do have a business right adjacent to it that may be interested, I don't know. But we have had plenty of interest over the years with, you know, storage building or a play shop or, you know, things like that. And I just would rather control it, own it, and be in charge of recouping our costs.
And there's no cleanup because it was a house there.
Correct. It was completely, we actually did the cleanup and we hired somebody to do it. And as far as the funds, the 51 up to $6,000, we don't have anything budgeted for it. However, you know, I would just recommend we spend it up. We have a condemnation of properties in the inspection budget, and we normally had been budgeting $10,000 in that. We decided not to budget that this year because it was kind of just put in there every year and we never really spent it. And now here we could have spent it, but I would suggest we just put it in that account and obviously overspend that budget a little bit, and in the end I think it'll definitely work itself out.
Does anybody have any questions for Nick?
I have a question.
Ma'am?
Can you explain that to me when you said, so the county wants us to pay them $5,000 for it, but if they got $11,000?
I'm just saying if somebody offered, you know, well.
Would they take
I'll
more
let-
than the $5,000 though if they sold it?
So if they would take, they want to be made whole from the community. Now, if they go to auction, they won't necessarily accept that. They do favors for the communities. We did this with Michigan Avenue. So I'm guessing they wouldn't probably let it go for less than $12,000.
Okay, say it sold for 12. What
Okay,
would that happen?
so if they sold for $12,000, they're first gonna collect their $5,100 and then some fees up to, say, $6,000.
Okay,
So what number did
then
you
we
say,
get
15?
the rest of it?
We get the rest, which we have 11 in, so in that case, you break about even.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But you're just, so it would be financially the same if they sold it or we sold it. But
That's what I was
if we
getting at.
sell it, we would be able to.
correct.
when we sell
That's
it.
kind of what I was getting at, is playing out the scenarios. No matter how we cut this cookie, it's gonna end up about the same loss for us. We're gonna lose money on it, no matter what we do. And losing this and being able to control it, I think is to our benefit.
Do you have a plan for it?
No, that's what I just said. I don't really necessarily have any plans for it. Like I said, there's a business nearby, you know, adjacent to it, that's an existing business. Are they interested in expanding? I don't know.
What's it for right now?
Multifamily, I believe. I didn't look at that.
Should be as a fourplex.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean it was.
That's true.
Most likely multifamily, and that's the other thing, we can control what direction we want it to go if we own it.
If we don't buy it, then are we gonna we'll keep mowing the lawn?
We would, because in the end, it's in a way doing the county a favor, but in the end, costing us more money, because if they mow it, they have to pay somebody to come out here, drive a truck out here, pay them mileage, pay them the rate, and it just is gonna diminish our,
How much we get
how much
if
we get.
sell it.
Correct. So it's fiscally more responsible, in my opinion, for us to take care of it. Yeah.
And it's a high-vis area too, so.
It is, and that's the other reason.
Makes
I've
sense.
actually told Darren a month ago, I said, just mow the thing every week. And he's like, well, I can't, and I have to send him a notice every week. I'm like, fine. So this is actually a better scenario, because it's a high-vis area, and I hate it when we have to drive by it and see it this tall, and then,
Save us money by just mowing it.
yeah.
We have to do the notice and all
So,
that.
Absolutely.
Go
ahead, Mike.
So what, you want, move 6,000, so that would mean you would offer like 17?
no, 5,100 is right now is what they are saying we would offer. Okay, but she has in here that there's a attorney fee that she's not 100% sure on. So I just wanted to have that flexibility. To whatever she tells me, I'm not gonna give them 6,000.
We offer 17. You get up back then.
No. We're not gonna offer them that.
No, I'm just saying, we could, let's say if we did that.
Yep.
11 come right back to us, hey,
Yeah,
I don't think it. I don't know what you're doing.
we're just making the county whole. They have $5,000 there.
Okay, if you take 6,000, that's a no-brainer.
They will from the community. They will not do that if it goes to auction. They offer it to the community first. And they will, still the finance, there's no guarantee. The finance committee still has to approve it. So if they think they can take it to market and get $25,000 for it, they probably would turn it on the 5.
Okay.
But in this case,
This is a one-time, just the village.
they do this every time this happens, especially when the village has such a large amount of money. We did the exact same thing on the corner of Michigan and
We did that on the Lakeshore too.
Kinley.
We did that on Lakeshore, Check. Thought there was one that came available to us like
believe
years
so.
ago. I think it was before your administrator.
Remember that?
So just for your sake, Ann, because I don't think you were on the board, and Randy, you were on the board, 1101 Michigan, I think that's right. Corner of Michigan and McKinley, there is a schoolhouse that was built there.
Yeah.
That, we condemned the property, we paid to take it down. We purchased it back from the county for $4,000 or $5,000. We then turned around and sold it pretty cheap to the school who built the house on it. We don't have tax base there. That's what we're trying to do again, rather than have somebody buy it and sit on it for 5 years or mess around.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Would they take, I mean, since we're taking a hit, would the county do it?
They won't,
No.
because they know they'll get it no matter what.
It's because they're the first ones to get paid.
Yes, yep,
And they don't owe more than what it's worth.
correct.
Anybody else have any questions for Nick? All right, it's good. Can I get a motion on this possible action of 601 Michigan?
I make a motion to approve Nick to opt out to $6,000 on 601 Michigan.
And I'll second. Did you second?
I'm gonna do a
Oh.
roll, I'm gonna do a roll
Oh,
call.
you're gonna do a roll call? Okay, I'll go.
Price, Horning.
Did you second, Chuck, though? Okay, so we got a motion by Ann and second by Chuck. Roll call, please.
Horning,
Yes.
Price.
Yep.
Streeter.
Yes.
Studs.
Yes.
Will.
Yes.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that.
I'll second that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Did you wanna do communications and new business?
Does anybody else want to?
I just wanted
No.
to-
Is everybody
We're
okay
good.
with that?
We're good.
Yeah, we gotta hit that in the beginning too, so.
Streeter. I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Table those till the next meeting.
Randy, right? Make the motion to adjourn?
I did, yeah.